Hello. For my video book report, I chose to read Gender and Discourse by Deborah Tannen. I found this book to be very insightful and would recommend that everyone read it. Tannen shows that the way men and women in varying cultures communicate is very different, but neither is considered right or wrong. We run into trouble when we do not understand how the other person works, and we misinterpret what their intention is. She talks about how men and women can display dominance over the other using different linguistic strategies. These strategies could include interruption, volume of talk, indirectness, topic raising, and adversiveness. Each one of these strategies could be used with different intentions. For example, one might interrupt someone to display power and dominance in a conversation, or they could interrupt them to stand with them in solidarity and agree with what they are saying. Tannen refers to the latter as cooperative overlap. Studies show that men tend to interrupt women more often, but Tannen would say that doesn't always mean that men want to dominate women. It is all based off context. One cannot give meaning to linguistic features. Language only has meaning around how it is framed. Tannen next goes on to talk about conversational coherence. There are two parts, physical alignment and topical cohesion. In a study of women and men of all ages, women were witnessed to gaze at each other and orient their bodies towards each other more. Women also talked about less topics for longer and got more personal. Men covered more topics at a less surface level. Tannen states that this basic conversational style differences can cause miscommunications between men and women. Women may perceive that the way a man orients their body as a lack of engagement, when really it's just a differing cultural habit. Tannen also discusses how examples of differing conversational styles between ethnicities can represent the different conversational styles between men and women. She discusses that sharing conversational strategies makes people feel understood and on the same page as the other participant, but when the strategies are different, they experience dissonance. Tannen then goes on to discuss how these linguistic styles can be linked to a framing of talk at work. She puts an emphasis on status and connection being intertwined when it comes to different positions in a workplace. Overall, Tannen's goal is to express that different genders have different linguistic strategies that we need to understand to limit conflict. The elite themes that this book most accurately addresses are leading with others and guiding change. This book shows how to understand different people with different conversation styles. To lead and work effectively with someone, you need to understand how they communicate. This will bring out the best in each person and ensure productivity. This book also drives change in the way that men and women are stereotyped. Tannen focuses on the importance of getting to understand each other's instinctual behavior to reduce conflict and misinterpretation of different genders. A couple major points in this book stood out to me. One being that intention does not always equal effect. Someone could say something in a conversation that is meant to be well-intended, but because the recipient does not share that conversation style, they may interpret it as negative. Another thing that stood out to me is that roles in conversations are not given, but created due to interactions. Conversations are a joint production. Both people in the conversation contribute to if one participant is dominant over the other. I found a few things in this book arguable or incomplete. For one, this book was published in 1996, so some claims about gender stereotypes have developed in the past 22 years. This book made a lot of generalizations that could not be relatable for today. Another claim that I found incomplete was when Tannen compared gender differences to differences between Greeks and Americans. This study only used a few subjects and went on to make major generalizations about the whole Greek community. For example, she claimed that Greeks prefer enthusiastic communication, but there was not a lot of evidence in this study. Overall, I think there are a lot of things to be taken from this book that will be very important to our leadership journeys. For one, it is hard for us to know if our differences stem from cultural or biological factors, but it is required for us to gain an understanding of these existing differences and respect each person in order to drive change. In addition, we need to understand that each person has different factors that contribute to the way they communicate. But that does not mean that one form of communication is better than the other. We need to take all of these into consideration when working alongside people with differing conversational styles. I would highly recommend this book. I think that it is very important for men and women to understand that different communication methods are all equally valid. This book motivates curiosity and encourages people to educate themselves on the differences that exist between genders. To effectively work together, we need to understand and respect each other's differences.